And take it away, Carol.
Hey, Logan.
So my name is, okay, I'm going to get rid of this. I think okay. My name is Carol Morgan. I'm just a regular mom. I was not into any of this spiritual anything before my son was killed in an accident when he was 20 in 2007. I was brought up strict Catholic. That was the only thing I really knew. So my son, when he was in college in Colorado, was killed in a fluke accident in the Colorado Rocky Mountains. He was a passenger in an SUV rollover on a trail when they were going about 15 miles an hour. He was killed instantly, and everybody else walked away with minimal to no injuries. And so it was a fluke accident, but it was what was happening after his passing that really rocked my world, everybody's world, his dad, his brother, friends and family all over the place. What went down was after the accident, um, signs were happening and they started immediately, really. People were pouring into our house once we got the news about the accident. And things were starting to happen already in our house. Okay. And I had an inkling about signs and dreams as a means of communication from a previous experience had when my dear friend from high school had passed from cancer 2 years before. So I did have a realization of this. And also, a good friend of ours told us to pay attention, that he would let us know that he was okay. So this snowballed into during the week between the accident and his funeral, and we did a traditional Catholic funeral. We had an open door policy, and people were coming over to our house and helping us with great love and support. It was just so difficult. But I think what is really important for everybody to know, and I truly believe this is part of the reason why this works so well for me, was the fact that we were all very loving and immediately forgiving to the kids that were involved in this accident. Mikey was in a Jeep rollover. He was not the driver. His good friend was the driver. And we truly never blamed anybody. So we did not have the blame and anger towards somebody or towards God during any of this. And I think what I have learned as I've moved forward with this, now this was in 2007, is our emotions, everything is energy. And that's what I learned from Mikey. I communicate with him regularly. I've done numerous podcasts. I've been on afterlife forums. This is kind of how Craig Hogan and Roberta discovered me, but I communicate with him, and he talks about the importance of energy and the importance of us trying to keep our vibration up and to be positive, because in the afterlife dimensions, it is easier for them to reach us if we are of a higher vibrating state. And if we keep that in mind, whether we're doing pendulum communication, or I think even with automatic writing, telepathic things, um, keeping our energy up is a really important thing with our emotions, because negative energy, negative thoughts, blame or not forgiving, all of those things are lower vibrating emotions, and they pull us down, and it makes communication or connections with our loved ones much more difficult. So I just want to get that in there before I forget to say that. But what happened is during all of this and with the funeral and everything, it wasn't just me getting signs and dreams. it was family and other relatives, and they would come and tell us about the dreams they had or the signs that they truly felt were Mikey. And this ultimately helped raise our vibration as we're going through this immense grief, because the loss of a child, I think for a parent, has got to be the most brutal experience there is. And it's extremely difficult. It's a journey like no other. But how do you work through that grief? How do you gain control of the grief was a really important piece for me. And not blaming and being forgiving was a huge piece. So I personally became very involved with Compassionate Friends, which is a grief group for parents who had lost children. And I met Mitch Carmody through that grief group. And he was the one who ultimately got me connected with Sally Baldwin, who at the time, she is no longer on the planet, but when she was here, was a spiritual medium from Florida who worked with a pendulum. Now, Mitch would talk about signs and dreams during his meetings with Compassionate Friends, and he would ask for volunteers to speak about any signs or dreams that they had received. And I would get very excited about this. I would just literally jump out of my chair and say, "Oh, I've got some things I would love to share." And I would share those things. And because I knew I wanted so badly to give hope to people, because I knew it was real. I knew it was a means of communication that our loved ones could do. Well, with one of the articles or one of the stories I had, he wanted to publish it in an article that he would do quarterly for Compassionate Friends. And so I agreed to that. And in the meantime, then I was on his radio show that he would do in Hastings, Minnesota, called Grief Chat. And I would come on there and talk about, signs and dreams from your loved ones. So that's how initially my communication started. Well, when those magazines ultimately came in, right before I went to pick a couple copies up for myself, Mitch got an email from this Sally Baldwin, this spiritual medium who used a pendulum out of Florida, and she was recruiting for moms all over the United States for an all expense paid trip to Sun Valley, Idaho. She got a donation from a lady who wanted to see if mothers could communicate with their children, if that would help soften their grief and improve their life as they progress forward, working with the loss of their child. So he told me, "Oh, Carol, you've got to apply to this retreat. You've got to apply to this retreat." He says, "You have all these things going on with you." And I journaled everything. I journaled all my signs from everybody. I journaled the dreams, anything somebody would send to me, I would write down and literally catalog it. I ended up getting over 8 notebooks. And then at that point, I finally stopped. But I did this, which was very therapeutic for me also, to look back on all these things. It gave such hope to all of us. So I applied to this retreat. 250 some moms applied. She asked for 65 applicants and picked 7. And I was one of the 7 moms that was chosen for this retreat, all expenses paid, in Sun Valley, Idaho for 5 days. I was afraid to go. I went to visit a relative who was very dear to me, was a Catholic nun in our family. I went to her, and she was at the time was 78 years old, asking her what she thought about me doing this, if she thought it was wrong, if it was against the church, because at this point I was still very involved with the Catholic Church. And she told me I absolutely needed to go. That how do you think information got into the Bible? that it had to go through somebody. All these things were happening for a reason. And she said, I even went to see John Edwards when he was at the Civic Center. So I thought, well, if a Catholic nun can go see a medium, I will too. And actually, Mikey's dad and I went to see a medium, a couple of mediums before this. I was very fearful to do it. And one of the mediums was extremely accurate. So it really helped me believe what I was experiencing was true. So I go on this retreat. I'm afraid, but it's a beautiful resort. And there's 7 of us moms from all over the United States, all brokenhearted, but all very hopeful. And we went, and Sally had a whole program set up for us. But she had then, that first day she was explaining everything to us. The next day we talked about our signs and different things where we felt we had a connection with our child and spirit. And then after that, she did individual readings for us. This is how it started. And when I met with her, she told me I was brought there by my son, that Mikey basically drove her crazy till she picked me. And she said that he was of a high energy and that he knew he could communicate with me. And he wanted her to show me, because prior to this too, there were times when I thought I heard him telepathically, but I truly thought it was just my imagination, because I was grieving. I was longing for him and the connection so bad that I thought maybe I heard him, but maybe I didn't. And so Mikey really thought if I used a pendulum, seeing would be believing. So anyway, during this reading, she told me I had the ability to communicate with him, and I would be able to do it with a pendulum. And she was going to show me how. I told her she was crazy. And she said, I promise you, by the time you leave here in 5 days, you will be doing it. And I can. Okay. So she changed my life forever. I'm forever grateful to this medium. She only lived 2 years after I had met her. She passed in her 50s from an enlarged heart. Through the communications I've developed with Mikey, I've written a book. I have a book that's on Amazon called Flying High in Spirit. And that book actually tells my whole story, tells how I communicate with Mikey. He talks about communication. He talks about the afterlife. He talks about the importance of energy and positive, the importance of positive energy, and how love is, it's about love. That's the most important thing. So during this retreat, I have a pendulum here. You know, I'm sure you've all seen pendulums. Okay. She gave me this disc, this letter disc. And on that disc is the alphabet and the numbers from 0 to 9. When I first started with the pendulum, it moved for me immediately. It moves incredibly precisely and crazy. I probably should ultimately do another video. It just moves wildly. And I have improved significantly with my skill with it. But when you first start out with a pendulum, what is really important is you need to protect yourself. The spiritual world is huge. There is positive energy as there is negative energy. So I envision myself in a big ball of light. I always ask for God's protection. I ask that Mikey is protected. So when I use the pendulum, I only communicate with my son. I do not go outside the box. I would say I would call him, I guess the easiest term I could use is he is my gatekeeper. So with a pendulum, there was one time when I went home, I practiced every day. So when you first start with a pendulum, the motions are usually circular. For me, first you start by confirming yes, what is a yes and what is a no. In fact, there is I'm also, I know this lady is still around, and you know what, Sheila, after this is done, I will send this to you also. I don't know if you can see this or not. Can you see that?
Yes, but not real clearly.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I will email you this information.
Right.
I am quite sure this gal is still around. She was one of Sally Baldwin's helpers through the Dying to Live Again Foundation. And in this booklet, it explains how I was taught to use the pendulum. So I will forward that email to you about the one from Craig Hogan. And then I will also send this to you, the information on this lady. Okay, so this booklet will come with this disc and a pendulum. So it's like a kit. And to me, this disc is amazing. So when I started again, I first asked Mikey, first I go through my ritual. I always go through a ritual to protect myself. It is important that when we work with the pendulum, that our mindset is positive and loving. We do not want to be in a negative mindset whenever we use a pendulum, because we do not want to draw in any negative energies or entities, because they are out there. One time I picked up the pendulum, it did not go through my ritual, and I got a message that really scared me. And Mikey told me, he said, Mom, you never picked that up without going through your ritual first. And this was in the beginning. I have never had a problem since, but I always do it. So that I cannot stress this enough. So you start with the pendulum, you hold it still, and you ask, your loving protection. And I call for Mikey. I always say, Mikey, Mikey, only my Mikey. God, please watch over and protect me and my precious son, Mikey. And the pendulum immediately starts to move. When I first learned it, I asked him what was his yes motion with the pendulum, which was clockwise. Then I asked him what was his no motion with the pendulum, and he would move it counterclockwise. Then he started to swing the pendulum at an angle. And I'm like, and what does this mean? This was after I had practiced and he could spell words to me on this disc. He told me that's what he does when he's laughing. So they're the same. I'm telling you, your loved ones, when they pass over, they're the same. And so the other thing is, people say, well, if you don't really have a loved one that you want to connect with, let's say over there, people often will try to connect with their spirit guides. Okay, that'll be like who they would try to call in if they're using a pendulum. So with him, yes was clockwise, no was counterclockwise. So then I would take the pendulum and I would line it up in the center of that disc. I would hold it still. And I asked him a question. I would say, Mikey, what's everything about? This was the first word he spelled to me. He would take the pendulum and move it up to the letter L, circle it clockwise. The pendulum would go back to the center, and then he would he would swing the pendulum up towards the letter O. So I would lift the pendulum over the letter O. He would circle that, yes. If I went to a different letter that was incorrect, he would circle it no, counterclockwise. He would switch it immediately. So he ultimately spelt the word love. That was the first word he spelled to me. And it's amazing how the pendulum moves. So he literally takes the pendulum and swings it up like in a straight line to the letter on the disc and then circles it. And then I go back to the center, and then he goes to the next letter and the next letter. We did it like that for quite a while. I practiced every day. Then we went faster, where he would give me the first letter of the word. So we would work on sentences. So he would give me the first letter of a word, and he would pull it up, and he'd circle it, yes. And I would say the word that I would hear in my head. This is where I was practicing my telepathic ability. I would say the word. If it was correct, he would circle yes. If it was incorrect, he would circle the pendulum no. And then we would go to the next word and the next word. So how did I ultimately got to the point where I could hear full sentences and he would circle yes or circle no. And if it was incorrect, he would spell specifically what he was telling me. When I first started with the pendulum, I just worked on yes and no answers where I knew the answer. Okay, so I would say to Mikey, was your truck on Earth black? He would tell me yes. He would circle yes. And then I would say, was your dog a Labrador? He would say no, which was correct. It was a golden retriever. It would be questions like that for me to, I would actually ask him those questions too before I even started to determine if it really is him who I was talking to. And I would get very specific with the questions. Your accident was in 2007. He would circle yes, and so that's how I started, with just yes and no answers. But I knew the answers because I am communicating with my son. So if that makes sense, so it worked well for me. It has worked really well. I hear him fluently telepathically now, but I still use the pendulum. I love to use the pendulum. For me, seeing was believing. When I could see what he was saying, what he was spelling, I knew what was happening with me was real, and it was fascinating to watch. It does not work for everybody. It does not work for his dad. It doesn't work for his brother. It happens to work for me, but they get other things. They have gotten wonderful signs and dreams from Mikey. So my point is, there's many ways of communication with the spiritual world. I truly know it's our God-given right to have these connections. Our loving connections never end. So the pendulum for me is just one tool that works. but it may not work and it may work. I don't know, but I do know you want to be careful. You want to be very positive in your mindset and thoughts. Sister Joan told me, the Catholic nun, when I came back, I was afraid about this because I thought, what are people going to think? And even just recently, someone said, you're doing devil's work. I said, well, if I'm doing devil's work, then the devil's turned into a really loving person, because the only messages I get are about love and kindness, and we're supposed to be nice and not judge others. So I said, it's basically what Jesus taught. So I said, you can think what you want, but that's really what it's all about. And that's what I always talk about. And, Mikey's book, Flying High in Spirit, I mean, that is what it's about. And so people will challenge you and whatever, but Sister Joan said to me, she said, people will often try to compare the pendulum to a Ouija board. And this is what I know as the difference between the two. Now, I would not call myself an expert at this. I'm just a regular mom that I swear got thrown into this, and here I am. But a Ouija board is more than one person, and it's like a game. And often it's, with parties or whatever, and the kids, I remember trying one as a kid. What happens there is, if all of you using the Ouija board, if any one of the people is fearful or is scared or whatever when you're working on the Ouija board, that can draw in negative energy. And Mikey will always tell me, loving energy that is God-based will always be messages that have love as the basis. Okay. So if you're getting icky, spooky, scary, ishy messages, then you want to stop. You want to take a break from it, because it could be negative energy coming in. So that's the difference I feel between a Ouija board is we can control ourselves. We can control our own energy, how we're feeling, our state of mind going into using a pendulum. But with a Ouija board, the only thing you control is yourself, and you can't control what other people are thinking, or if they've got a little fear, or if they're in a negative mindset or whatever, if that makes sense. So that would be the one other thing I would say about pendulums. The other thing too is just doing the yes and no with a pendulum, I think is very helpful and can be very useful. So just asking questions that are yes and no. And if that works for you and this does not, that's okay. That's okay. You still always want to go through that ritual, though, before you are to pick up the pendulum. So that's another, thing I would say about it. But I practiced, I bet, almost every day, even if it was just for a couple minutes, for the first 2 years after Mikey's accident. I would pick up newspapers and have him spell things and make sentences out of words in the newspaper, on coupons. I used everything to practice my skill, and it really, really improved. The other thing I want to say is, early on, when I had said, I thought I heard Mikey's voice, but I thought it was my imagination. Don't ever doubt. I doubted then, and doubt shuts the door for us. We don't want to doubt. We want to stay positive and hopeful, because it's huge. It's huge. And now I never doubt anymore about anything. And I try to stay as positive as I can. And I have my down days and this and that. But if I'm having a day where I'm not feeling up or, upbeat to use the pendulum, I don't use it. I don't use it. So I only use it when I feel like I'm doing good and I'm feeling positive and all of that. I still always go through my ritual. So, but there's this booklet that I had gotten from Sally. A friend of mine, I want to say, just got this not that long ago. I think it still exists. So I will forward that information to Sheila, and also that other link as far as showing that video. And then if you were to Google Carol Morgan and Mikey, you will see numerous podcasts and different things that I have done. I have answered hundreds and hundreds of questions on afterlifeforums.com. I believe that website still exists. But also, if you go to Seek Reality, and again, I will forward this information to Sheila. There's a lot of information on that too. So, but with pendulum communication, that's what I did. That's what I continue to do. I wouldn't call myself a professional, as far as I never was like this before, but I am now. And so here I go, but I know there's other people that use the pendulum. I think it's a fairly popular thing for people to use. My biggest recommendation, though, it's about your mindset and being positive, and truly, truly, you want to protect yourself when you use a pendulum. So, Sheila, I'm going to open it up to questions. Can they verbally ask me a question?
Sure, but I have a question first. I'm going to burst in up front.
Okay.
And I would like to know about the way you hold the pendulum, what you do to keep from your hand not moving so that you know that it's coming from your side.
Okay. So if you can see me, well, okay, I'm going to bring it up. I rest my elbow so I'm resting my elbow on the desk. I want my elbow stable and my hands still. Okay. So now let me see if I can you see the bottom of it? Well, let's see. This is the hardest part for me, is because I'm on it. Okay. So let me do it like this. So I rest my elbow, my hand is still. Mikey, Mikey, only my Mikey. God, please watch over and protect me and my son, Mikey. Now, I can't show you my whole arm, but it's not moving. So stop it and go counterclockwise. So now he just switched it, Now move it straight up and down. Swing it more. Okay. Now stop it and move it side to side. Swing it more, Mikey. Swing it more. Swing it more. So he literally moves it any way that I ask, really. So like this. Can you see that?
Yes.
So my elbow, what is key for me, Sheila, is my elbow has to be stabilized on a surface.
But I think
I never use the okay.
Don't use more than the elbow. I know that's important, but how do you keep your wrist from moving?
Well, it doesn't move. So now I'm trying to show my wrist. Mikey, Mikey, only my Mikey. God, please watch over and protect me and my son, Mikey. Now, I can't show the whole pendulum, but you can tell it's moving.
Mm-hmm.
And my wrist is not, correct?
Doesn't look like
Right.
it. I mean,
Yeah.
okay. Certainly looks like it's moving very strongly.
So, so in that video that you saw, when I did that, I literally held my arm like this because I thought for sure people are going to think I'm moving it, you know? So I'm like, how am I going to do this? So the friend who was helping me with it at the time, she goes, hold your wrist, normally I'm not like this, you know, and I move very fast when I do this normally. But when I'm showing people for the first time, I mean, now, let's see, I don't know, you know, it's so hard to do this because I'm right in front of this thing, but I mean, it's moving.
Mm-hmm. We have put several links to some of your videos in the chat, so people will be able to copy that whole chat and be able to take that. And
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I just, but I hold my wrist as steady as I can, my fingers too,
Mhm.
I hold my fingers still and it moves,
Yeah, honey, do you have your hand up? Do you have a question? No. Okay, did anybody
and,
else?
and my,
Nina.
and my elbow, if I don't have my elbow on something stable,
Yeah,
forget it, because then it's like, you know what I mean? It's for sure people are going to think I'm moving it then. But this is the thing, Sheila, it moves from the bottom.
Mhm.
So it's not from up. If I'm going like this, the movement if you can see this, is very different
Mhm.
than if I gotta get this to, I don't know, hold on a second. I got something that just showed up on my screen. Okay. When I uh move it like this, I mean, it doesn't move this, it moves from the bottom. So if hold on a minute, I don't know okay, so I don't know if it's moving from the bottom. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I can have him move it very finely. So Mikey, make it really little teeny, 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 teeny circle. Little teeny circle. I don't know if that's showing up or not.
Yeah.
And I did show that on that other video, that YouTube video, I did show how when I would go over different letters, he immediately changes it the other day. He's very precise on how this moves, but the key again, I know, is my elbow is on the table or on this desk, and I hold my wrist still. I hold my wrist very still.
Yeah.
And it, but it moves from the bottom up, not from the top down.
Okay. Nina had a question.
Okay.
Actually, not a question. I just wanted you to please thank Mikey for coming tonight to help you with your presentation.
Oh,
It was very sweet.
trust me, he loves this stuff. Yeah, no, he knows. So, I mean, he can really whip this thing, let me tell you. I mean, it can go bonkers. So, but you're welcome. You're welcome.
Were there any other questions from anybody? Okay, well, yeah, Linda, if you can unmute yourself, you need to unmute. No. Still muted. Let's see, can I do it?
Does it have to be connected to your energy or can you hang it from something?
You have to hold it. Otherwise, it doesn't work. This is the other thing that's crazy about it. So I have had where someone else will hold the pendulum and they try to get it to work and it won't work. If I put my hand over theirs like this as
Right.
they hold the pendulum, if my hand is here and they're holding it here,
Then it works.
Then it
Ah.
works. So it's like there has to be like an energy connection. It is the craziest thing. He tells me, it's our combined energy. I know I have to hold it or be connected to it somehow. But I have had friends hold it and it doesn't work. But if I put my hand on top of theirs, it will move. It is just, I'm honestly, I'm still baffled by it. My sister always says to me, I don't know how you make that move. And I'm like, I said, it's spiritual energy. It's spiritual energy. I mean, I don't, but everything is energy. I mean, Mikey tells me that all the time. He says, Mom, literally everything is energy. The afterlife dimensions are energy. They're all around us. Our loved ones are close. I remember after Mikey's accident, I would always go like this. He's in here somewhere. I can't see him, but I just know he's right here, but I can't see him. And that's pretty much how it is. I mean, they're all around. Heaven, the afterlife is all around us. We just can't see it.
We've got
We can't see it.
We've got 4 questions and I don't know
Okay.
who was first. Do you guys know who was first? Was it Lori? I'll go in the order it's on my screen.
Okay.
Question is, do you know if you had a miscarriage that is, say, past 5 months, if you can communicate with that child, if there was a heartbeat, if there was all kinds of things like that, do you know?
Hear her, Sheila.
Can you hear me?
I think
I can't hear her. Can you?
no.
I heard her.
heard her.
Okay. Can you say something, Carol? Not sure we're
Can
Are
you
you-
hear me?
Yes, we can now.
Okay.
Do you want me to repeat it? Can you hear
Yeah,
me now?
I didn't hear you.
Okay.
I didn't hear you, Lori.
Okay. Do you know if you had a miscarriage with a child that was past 5 months, the heartbeat, movement, all of that kind of thing, if you can communicate with that child?
I think you could, yes. I do know. I don't know how you would confirm that it's that child, you know what I mean? As far as, but I think yes, you could, yes.
Okay, so maybe I've been using a pendulum, I've been using a pendulum for probably 30 years. My stepmom actually was the one who showed it to me, and I was raised LDS, and so it was very taboo, just like you.
Mhm.
But some of the things I learned from you tonight, I have not practiced. For instance, I'm not real dedicated with the ritual, protecting myself. I do stop when I'm having confusing feelings or negative feelings. I do stop. But, and then the part about not doubting myself, because I do doubt myself sometimes. So I appreciate what you said. And I think I'm going to try to see if I can communicate with a child that I lost.
Oh, good. Yep.
You can
And I
report
would,
back.
just start with the yes and
Right.
no's. But I
Mm.
mean, doubt does shut the door. I mean, and I did it myself. I mean, I've learned a lot, because it's been, let's see, that 2007, I learned this in 2000, his accident was 2007. I learned the pendulum in 2009, and it's 2023. So I've been at this a long time.
2024.
Or
Yeah.
2024.
We lost a year. Okay, look, we've still got 4 more hands.
I've come a long way, but let me tell, I mean, I've just learned some things. And so I always try to share those things that have really helped me, So
Oh.
good. Oh, good. Yep,
Thank
give
you.
it a
That's-
try, and I will forward that stuff to Sheila when I'm done here. So you'll
Okay,
have that information.
we've still got 4 more. Nancy,
Okay.
you're the next on my screen.
Yeah, I was just curious, since you learned this, Carol, in a retreat that was 5 days with a teacher, do you think the importance of having like a energy download from the teacher that really was loving and caring, and you're learning this? Did everyone else at the retreat also succeed?
There was one other mom. There was one other mom in our group. So Sally did 3 groups total before she passed. And there was one other mom who it worked like it did for me. But some of the other moms, it did not work. So, it sometimes it works for people and sometimes it doesn't. So it didn't necessarily work for all the moms. No, but it's worked fabulous for me. It's been a great tool for me.
Susan, you're next.
Yes, thank you. That was very interesting. So I totally, totally believe in energy, and that energy is very healing, and that it can help move us along. My question is, like, how anybody could answer, like, I struggle with keeping high frequency and very positive energy. How do you do that? Like, how do you just stay so positive?
It's because I was on this grief journey, I got to the point where I refused to let grief win. Okay, so for me, my situation had to do with grief and with the loss of a child. I don't know your situation, but
Total grief.
Okay.
2 years of it, and I just
Okay.
can't.
I did everything I could to help beat the powers, to let grief control my life. Part of it was I had another child I had to pull it together for, and the other thing for me, which has been a huge piece on my grief journey, has been music. Music is the universal language. It's good for the soul. I mean, Mikey communicates still a lot through music. And it's the timing of when a song comes on the radio or the music happens. It's been amazing. And I love live music. And so, in fact, when I'm done with this, I'm going to go listen to some live music that is happening in my neighborhood. So I love live music. It lifts my energy. It heals my soul. It's been huge. And Mikey loved music also, and that has really helped me. I love music and I love to dance to the song. I love dancing. It makes me happy. And so music has been a huge thing for me.
Thank you.
Surrounding myself with positive people is a big thing because a lot of people can pull you down. And being with people that understand your situation, because let's face it, when you're on this grief journey, people say things that can really knock you. And I think they mean well, but they don't get it. And they're lucky they don't get it. So you just got to do the best you can. I also run off of an emotions chart, and I got this from a lady, and I can also send that to Sheila. I will send her. Sheila, I may do this all in the morning.
Sure.
I send all this stuff out, but this emotions chart I have pasted on my bathroom mirror, and I look at that emotions chart every morning, and I try to stay on the positive side. Now, understand, I am very far out. I am 16 years post Mikey's accident. 2 years, that's raw stages. That is the raw stages. And they last for a while. And it's very difficult. But I did anything and everything I could to help myself and not let grief take over my life, because it will. I also
I know that.
know without a doubt that our loving connections never end. We're going to see
Thank
them
you.
again. We're going to
Thank
see
you.
them again. I know this without a doubt. We're going to see them again. And our relationship now is just different. They're out of the body. We're still moving this body around. But when we're done, we'll shed our body too. And our soul, our energy, our soul will meet with them. And I know I'm having one heck of a party, and it's going to be a 70s and 80s party with disco balls. So that's
Okay,
my
Thank you.
request.
we're
So-
right at the end, and
Oh.
we've got 3 people.
Okay,
So
okay,
let's
I'll go quick.
make it, we could be, quick.
Yep, okay.
Lauren, you're next.
Okay, don't have a question per se, but and please take this in a positive thing. I always have my pendulums in front of me, and you were talking and you were showing us what was going on with your pendulum, how to hold it, and all that. And so I picked mine up and I thought, well, let's see. And my yes and no is different. My yes and no is
Mhm.
forward and back for yes, and side left to right for no. And then the circulars are different things. So I just said, is she communicating with Mikey? And it said yes, really big yes and no in my yes and no. And then I said, Mikey, are you here with us? And it went circular, clockwise, really huge. And mine doesn't do that for yes, but your Mikey does. So I thought that was really proof positive that this is real. I mean, I would already, but I'm a baby at it. I've only been doing it for maybe 5 or 6 years. So,
Yes, but
so I just, but I thought that was really, really interesting.
That is
Spirit-wise
interesting, and I'm
energy-wise.
tingling all over as you say this. So it's crazy. That's all. I don't know.
Yeah.
I was never like this
It
before,
is.
and I still am in shock that this
Yeah.
is what goes on. But anyway,
It's all
good.
energy.
It's all energy.
Yeah.
It's
Okay,
all
Deb-
energy.
Thank you for sharing.
Oh, thank you.
Deborah.
Hi, I just wanted to first say thank you for your authenticity and your kindness, and that I can tell that you just have a really sweet, down to earth nature. And I appreciate that so much. And I wanted to ask, do you think that, it's possible to communicate with a living person in addition to, I know you talked about being able to speak with people who are more in spirit, but do you think there's like a possibility of some really deep level of telepathic communication with a living person? And like, if so, have you ever had experiences with that or heard of anyone else? And are there is there anything you would mention about that, like tips or?
So you're saying to use the pendulum to communicate with someone else by using the pendulum? But
Almost
I've
kind of
never I don't
telepathic.
even know. I know I've had incidences where I feel like, I will call a friend and she'll say, I was just thinking about you. And you literally, the phone rang and it was you. It's that kind of stuff. But I've never used the pendulum for that type. I mean, that's like, so I don't know enough about that part for sure. But I think there is this energy, this connection that we have with people that can be telepathic, but I don't know if you can use a pendulum for that. I don't know. I just don't know.
Okay,
Thank you.
we're got our last question. and
Okay.
that's So,
Hello. Sorry.
Hi guys, I would love to have my camera on, but I am driving and just listening to this amazing talk. It was just so, I could just feel all your love and all your kindness coming through, Carol, through every word that you were saying. Thank you for all the demonstrations, your wrist, your hand. I know how hard it is on a screen. I'm trying to just be involved in this talk while I'm driving my kids to the airport. But the whole thing is that it was just so amazing. My question I just wanted to ask is that I know I know that you are actually very strongly connected with your son, and it is an ongoing relationship even right now. My question is, has this relationship and your communication ever helped you in such a big way right now in your present life beyond his passing to the other side? And if you have any example that you could just tell us of how this communication has, because I know it heals you and it helps you, but how has it practically changed something uh, in your life right now? And that was just what I wanted to know. Another thing is that I through COVID, I would just be listening and walking and in the parks, and for some reason, Seek Reality just appeared by itself on my phone. I didn't know who Roberta Grime was. I didn't know anything about anything. So when you say spirit actually just comes in by itself when it's the time for it to come,
Mhm.
I totally agree with that. Mikey
That
must have been bothering the lady madness, in madness just to get the mom on. And I totally understand that as well. So that's my question. I'm sorry, I'm driving. So
Oh,
I'd love
that's
to show my
okay.
face, but I can't.
Yeah, I
Sorry.
mean,
Thank you.
if you go to Seek Reality,
Oh,
or Roberta Grimes' website too, you can I'm on all that stuff. But this
sure.
is the one thing I'm gonna say, and this is gonna
Right.
sound goofy maybe even, but
Right. Nothing sounds goofy. Go
having
for it.
I know having gone through what has been the most tragic thing
Hmm.
in my life, the
Hmm.
most heartbreaking and devastating thing in my life,
Hmm.
has made me the
Hmm.
best person I could ever be.
Hmm.
So I am a retired physical therapist. I have
Right.
worked rehab
Right.
and neuro disabilities and prosthetics my whole career, 40
Right.
years.
Right.
I
Uh-huh.
love helping people. And that's why I do this type of thing now, because I want to help people any way I can to know that our loving connections never end and that we all have an ability in one way, fashion, or form to connect with our loved ones until we meet again. And it's we're all connected and it's all about love. And so that's why I do what I do. But it has made me the best person I could possibly be. I don't sweat the small stuff anymore. I try really hard to just stay as positive as I can. I mean, it has helped me immensely as a person. And I just try to keep shedding that positive juju to everybody. So that's what I do.
That is such a beautiful answer, and yeah, that just completes everything, because that's what we want to do. We want to, for me personally, just to know that our loved ones continue on. It has actually made life so much easier in every way to just
Right.
deal with
I mean,
whatever comes on. Yeah.
all the icky stuff that goes in the world, I'm like, well, this is all
Yes.
temporary. This is just
Yes.
temporary. We're here for the journey,
Exactly.
but then we go back home. So,
Yes.
it makes life a lot more tolerable.
That's so true. Thank you so very much. Thank you all. Thank you, Sheila, for this whole beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you all for
Yeah.
being here. Oops, I think that's somebody calling me from jail. A client,
So,
client. Okay, I'm gonna let it go.
Okay.
So Carol, thank you so much. You can see, obviously, with all the participation and the faces, that everybody really appreciated the material.
Thank you.
oh, you're welcome.
Share?
I will, Sheila, I'm actually, because I'm going to be going out the door here. I will forward all that information to you tomorrow.
Okay, I'm gonna turn off the